Chapter 11. A month passed, and Alex couldn't get out of bed. Her court date had come and gone on the hearing for custody of her son. Max called and texted her, but she only stared at the phone, reading the text messages when she felt well enough. He was so used to controlling everything and everyone. First the bondage thing, then a twin brother, and finally taking her son in hopes that he could bend her to his will. She had declared that she hated him and would never love him because of what he had done. It became hard to forgive him. Alex finally found a job working the evening shift at a hotel as a cocktail waitress. The work paid an above-decent salary. It was one of the best hotels in Seattle, and it was owned by someone that did not require her to submit to the kind of activities that Blackstone had required of her. Maybe after I save some money, I can hire a real lawyer to fight Max for custody of Maxim, she thought. She hadn't seen Maxim in a month because she had to see Max first, and she couldn't bring herself to ask to see her own son. Alex's parents visited Maxim in Montana. Max explained to them that if anyone found out that he was the father, then there was a possibility of a kidnapping. That was why he needed control of their son, to protect him. Alex's mother and father tried to convince Alex to see Max's point. Her father declared that she was stubborn as usual. Running out of the rented bungalow, late for work, she jumped into her Volkswagen Beetle and gunned the accelerator, thinking she was being tailed. Alex wanted to keep this job a secret. She didn't want anything to interfere with her being able to support herself and her son, and besides, her tips were beginning to add up. She was making $500 a night and $1,000 on Saturdays. Pretty soon, she would have enough money to take the great Mr. Blackstone back to court. Arriving at the St. John Hotel and rushing to the lockers to change into her skimpy black and white French maid's uniform with black 6-inch heels, she was out of breath. The restaurant in the hotel catered to the very rich. It mirrored Blackstone's Omni Hotel, only it didn't have ultramodern furniture. It was more on old-world European model, with its French silk furnishing and original pictures by Monet. Alex felt lucky to have gotten the job because the last girl fell in the high heels serving drinks. That was a disaster for her, but a godsend for Alex. "You're late," shouted the pretty waitress with the curvy body. "I'm going to make all those tips if you don't get here on time." Crystal confessed, "If Rob hadn't picked me up, I would be coming in with you now, late." Crystal swung her tray around, waiting for the bartender to complete her order. When Alex had placed an ad in the local newspaper for a roommate, Crystal walked up looking like a member of one of the local rock bands. Her hair was long and black with streaks of red tint, and she wore a short skirt with black and white polka dots. She had a fringed vest and boots, straight out of the 70s with a little of the 80s fashion statement. She swung around carrying a tray with 10 drinks. "Which table is mine?" Alex inquired. "You were requested at that table." Crystal pointed at the table seating 10. Alex peeped around and saw a large party of men dressed immaculately in their Armani suits and ties, with the exception of one man dressed in a gray bespoke suit who had just walked away from the table. She recognized the special tailoring of that suit. It was different. At a distance, it could be one of Black's suits, Alex thought. After walking to the table, she asked for their orders. She moved around the rectangular table as each man placed his order. She turned and ran into that bespoke suit, which decorated a handsome gray blue-eyed man of about 40 with salt and pepper hair. He was clean-shaven, and his eyes locked on her. "Aren't you going to take my order?" "I'm sorry, sir." "The name is St. John, Ms. Bishop." Sir, what would you like? Your telephone number. I'm busy now, sir. I don't have time to socialize, she said, meeting his gaze. Then just bring me a glass of water, Charles Street John stated with an arresting smile. Very well, sir. Alex gripped the tray to keep from biting her nails. It was as though he had undressed her with his steel-gray eyes. She felt she had seen those eyes before. Every time she brought a drink to his table, his eyes followed her. He sat staring at her as she walked in the high heels. She tried to pull the uniform down, but tore it instead. The heat from his glances went on for hours, and when it was time for her break, he sat in that same position, his fist to his chin until she returned. He's making me nervous, Alex admitted to Crystal. If I disappear, make sure you tell the police about him. He could take me any time or any day, Crystal said with a chuckle. Alex stood gazing at Crystal thinking, what a stupid thing to say. I hope you're not that impressionable. Why not? I would give anything to land a big fish like him. You have my blessings. Alex couldn't get out of her mind the problems she was having with Max, and any man at this time would be nothing but trouble. Really? You can even take over my table. Tell them I'm on break. Alex went to the dressing area and sat to give her feet a rest, out of sight of another impossibly handsome man. She couldn't handle one, so how would she navigate around two, both rich and both big trouble? When Alex returned from her break, Crystal had taken another drink order. I'm glad you're back. I can't keep up with those orders, and those guys are drunk and horny, all except Mr. St. John. I don't trust a man that never takes a drink. He likes to be in control, Alex said, glancing at the table. How do you know? Crystal said. Trust me. Give me that tray. I'll get the drinks, and you can take a break. Don't smile at the one at the end of the table, the one with his back to us, the one all in black. He's mine, Crystal said with a grin. Don't worry, I don't have time for any rich, horny men. As a matter of fact, I'm now celibate. No shit. How does that feel? It feels damn good. Alex lifted the tray filled with drinks and swung around the corner, strutting with confidence. Great, you're back. I was wondering what happened to you, St. John said with his eyes burrowing into her body. Here is your water, and a glass of white wine for you, a whiskey soda, a glass of red wine, scotch and water. Alex moved around the table, looking at the drinks, and never looking up. She hadn't noticed the man who had joined the group. Ms. Bishop, did you forget me? It was a familiar voice. It was a sexy voice. It was a domineering voice. Alex glanced across the table, and her eyes locked on the handsome man dressed all in black. He wore a black silk shirt and a black bespoke suit, and from an angle she spotted a pair of long legs, with one leg crossed over the other, with a pair of black Italian bespoke shoes on his feet. His fingers rested on his brow. His face was handsome and clean-shaven, and Alex's legs wobbled at the sight of him. She glanced past Max to see Crystal waving at her and mouthing, "He's mine." What would you like to drink, Mr. Blackstone? Why, Max, do you know this beautiful woman? St. John asked, leaning forward and softly touching Alex's wrist. You don't have to answer, I can see it in your face. I'm having what Charles is having. A glass of water. I'll be right back, Mr. Blackstone. Alex made a quick turn and rushed to Crystal. Crystal, Mr. Blackstone wants a glass of water. That's all. I'm disappointed. I thought maybe if he had a drink, he would make a pass at me. Crystal's head swayed with delight. Trust me, you don't want what he's giving. I would like to find out. Looking at his face, I can imagine it between my legs, and my legs wrapped around that handsome. Okay, Crystal, keep your panties on. Placing a glass on her tray, Crystal walked with poise to the table. She posed, standing away from Max, so she could bend forward to show off her breasts. She placed the water glass in front of Max and poured water from the carafe, gazing into his face. His body turned to face Alex, watching her standing at the corner of the bar. Crystal rushed to Alex. I think he's gay. I did everything, and he never even noticed me. You know how everyone says I have these incredible boobs? Well, he never looked twice at them. Mr. St. John couldn't keep his eyes off them, but he's clearly into you. Trust me, he's not gay, and no one is into me, Crystal. St. John is just horny. Maybe his wife hasn't given him any in months, Alex said, preparing the garnish for another round of drinks. Standing at the corner of the bar with her back to the table, she heard, Alex, I need to speak to you. Max stood behind her, his voice strong and demanding. We have nothing to say to each other, Alex said, trying to meet his strength. Max. A hand rested on his shoulder. We don't allow our waitresses to date the clients. Does that include you, St. John? Max's voice rang harsh and confrontational. He never turned around, with his eyes blazing and his brow furrowed. Clearly, Ms. Bishop does not want to talk to you. Is he speaking for you, Alex? Max questioned with a steely glance. Yes. Max turned on his heel and locked eyes with Charles Street John. Don't ever come between me and mine. I will forgive it this one time, but not twice. If you value your hotels, then don't cross me or interfere with me and Alex. We have a history together and you don't understand, and I'm not about to stand here and explain why I'm talking to her. Maximilian, you may scare others and that little girl, but you don't scare me, and since you feel the need to threaten me, it is you who need to worry. I will do everything in my power to protect her from you. Please leave, Max. We have been friends a long time and respect each other, but you are out of order, St. John declared. The only thing out of order is for you to come between me and Alex. I will not allow anyone to separate me from Alex. She is mine. I've heard you say that before, Max, St. John said. Alex's eyes widened. What the fuck does he mean? I am not the only one he has declared that they belong to him. They appear to have a history of disagreements over women. I wonder who won. I want to be on the side of the winner. Leave, Max, Alex said with strength in her voice. Max's stare remained long after he had gone. Are you okay, Alex, Ms. Bishop? Can I see you home? I think I may need a ride, Alex said. She was distraught, thinking that she was fired. Ms. Bishop, my limo will take you home. Alex stumbled along and threw a coat on and told Crystal to drive her Volkswagen home after her shift had ended. Chapter 12. Walking in a daze, I stepped into the limousine as I had done many times with Max. It just appeared to be normal as the rain falling on my face on a spring day, and as unlucky as drowning in a teaspoon of water. Mr. St. John, I wasn't aware that you would accompany me home. I had been startled by his presence and seeing him sitting in his limo. Please don't be uneasy. I haven't been able to function since my wife died. I just needed the company of a woman. Why me? I wondered. Clearly, he was a man who wouldn't have a problem getting a date. Maybe it was a woman who didn't care for a date that turned him on. Max had unnerved me to the point that I couldn't drive home without wrecking my car, and probably taking out a family in the process. It wasn't me I cared about, it was our son. My fear was that I might die and leave him to Max and Jonas. With Max's obsessive sexual behavior, he would never be around to take care of Maxim, and then there was his post-traumatic stress brother, Jonas. There is no way in hell I would put myself in jeopardy with the possibility of those two having influence over my son. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear about your loss. I'm not very good company today," I said, focusing on the conversation. "Don't be sorry. We were high school sweethearts, and we had more time together than most couples." How profound. I have been with Max only months, and I may never have the kind of relationship this man enjoyed with his wife. I looked in his face. His black hair had begun to gray on the sides. He was confident, and his clear bluish-gray eyes aroused my body. He may have seen the desires that I harbored, not for him but for Max. It's probably a hormonal thing. I looked for the moon. A full moon, I thought. "Where do you know Max from? You don't appear to be the kind of woman he would be interested in." That statement hit me hard. I sat back and then sat up. "Why would you say that?" "Because you're not a virgin. Your personal information states that you have a child." "What else does it say? Does it tell you about my sexual orientation or how I like my men?" "Please accept my apology, Ms. Bishop. I didn't mean to." I was angry, and I had to let out steam. "I accept your apology, and thank you for the ride home," I said with bitterness in my voice. Max was turning me off to men. I didn't know how to be charming. I saw far too much in their faces, which made me defensive. I found myself not trusting them. This should not happen at my age. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I was supposed to find my Prince Charming, and marry him, and live happily ever after. Finally home. St. John offered to see me to my door. I refused. I stepped out of the limo and staggered into my house to find my roommate, Crystal, watching my 32-inch flat-screen television, which I had purchased at a bargain basement sale. She had a large bowl of popcorn and a can of cola. "What took you so long?" I hadn't noticed that St. John might have taken the scenic route to my home. The traffic was heavy. This time of night. Crystal raised an eyebrow as if she didn't believe me. "Alex, that gorgeous man, you know the one I had been eyeing most of the night?" He stopped me as I was pulling into the driveway. I looked at Crystal, wondering who she could be talking about, because it was well past 2 a.m. "You know, the one I thought was gay. He said he would be back to see you." A loud sound of a fist hit the door. I knew it was my Mr. Black, and by the sound of the knock he was angry. "Crystal, I need some privacy to handle this." Crystal had a look of admiration on her face. It should have been one of concern. "I wish it was me," Crystal added, wandering into her bedroom and closing the door. I heard music playing, which was great to mask the yelling that was sure to occur. Opening the door, I placed my hand to my heart, as if I could calm the thumping in my chest. His face was intense, his lips inviting, his body hot, and I wanted to jump into his arms, wrap my legs around his waist, and fuck him all night. "Why would you allow St. John to take you home?" "What business is it of yours?" "Can I come in, Alex, just for a minute?" My gorgeous man walked in and didn't give me a chance to say no, and he sat down. He looked around. I'm concerned about you. St. John is a man that has peculiar sexual habits. Like you, Max. You're worried about what I do in the bed. You who have just about wrecked my life. I deserve that. But you don't understand. He's a dangerous man. You're a dangerous man. I would never do anything to hurt you. You already have. So please leave now. Max put his head down and didn't say a word, and placed his hands in his pockets, and lumbered out of the door. I closed the door, and lay with my face and body leaning on the door. I wanted to run to him, and fall to my knees, and hold onto his fine, muscular legs for dear life, and allow him to fuck me wherever and whenever he wanted. I could feel his dick in my vagina, in my dreams. I could feel his body enter mine. All the closeness I craved from being in his presence for however short or long our life together had been, it came back in a torrent of desire. He has hurt me deeply, and we may never find each other. Waking early the next morning, I made coffee for myself and Crystal. I was a year older than Crystal. Crystal, all of 22 and full of my lost youthful arrogance, liked to spend her mornings in bed, except when she smelled a good cup of java. But this morning, she was working on her beauty sleep. She was a beauty, but you couldn't tell by the losers she hung out with. Her black hair was now cut short like a boy's, or maybe she'd had extensions, and the red streak was long gone. She wore a size 4 in dresses, which made me envious of her because she could eat everything and never gain weight. After pouring my coffee, a ping registered and I saw I had an email. When I checked it, I found it was from work. Ms. Bishop, I was informed that you are not working the night shift, and that Mr. St. John stated that you will accompany him to the opening of his new hotel. He will send you several gowns, and you can select one for the occasion. Is he out of his fucking mind? I never agreed to. My thoughts were interrupted by a loud ring from my smartphone. Ms. Bishop, this is Charles Street John. Yes, Mr. St. John, I recognize your voice. I was wondering whether you would join me in the opening of my new hotel. I don't know, Mr. St. John. Please call me Charles or Charlie, whichever one you prefer. Well, Charles first. As a courtesy to me, my wife, well, I'm not good at being alone. Since you put it that way, I will be happy to accompany you this once. Thank you, Alex. You won't regret it. I'm already regretting it. I fell into my chair and sipped the last bit of coffee when at about 10 a.m., a knock on the door jarred me from my seat. I peeped through the small opening on the shaker door and spotted 2 women carrying garment bags. I opened the door, and they marched in and hung the dresses on an iron rod. Under the dresses were 6 pairs of shoes. Thank God I could walk in high heels, because the Christian Louboutin and Manolo Blahnik heels were 5 and 6 inches. It must be wonderful to be rich and have so much information at your fingertips, but then I have Google, but not the time, I thought. I thanked the girls and asked them what should I do with the extra dresses, and they said that they were a present from St. John. I didn't feel comfortable keeping the dresses, and I didn't know when I would be able to use them. As I was going through the dresses looking for something I might wear with a strange man, in walked Crystal, who stopped in her tracks and let out a scream. Holy shit! Where did you who sent this? Crystal's large blue eyes opened wide. She rushed to the dresses and began caressing them as if they were babies. Look at the labels and the prices. Don't get too excited. I'm keeping only one. I'm sending the rest back after tonight. But why? She moaned. The sounds coming from her were like those of a girl who had been told that her first boyfriend had just dumped her on the night of the prom. Crystal, I have to go to a function tonight, and I need you to work in my place. My customers are big tippers, and you can make pretty good money. Okay, but who are you going on a date with? She murmured in a daze, trying on the shoes. I'm going to a function with Mr. St. John. Holy shit. You just started working at his hotel, and already you have managed to snag 2 billionaires. I didn't snag anything. Maybe they have a friend that you could introduce me to, or a wayward brother. Those kinds of guys are always attracted to me. I thought about Jonas Blackstone. You didn't get more confused and wayward than him. I wasn't going to be responsible for introducing his sick ass to impressionable Crystal. She had just moved to Seattle from Iowa. She didn't need a crazy, unstable man like Jonas messing up her life before she had a chance to live. I wouldn't do that to her. She would have to do that to herself. Then I thought of Joshua. They looked as if they could make it. After all, he lived on a farm, and Iowa was nothing but farming country. Yeah, sure, Crystal, I said, thinking I could keep Joshua out of my hair but in my life.